What if the noise of the world was nothing more than a carefully disguised distraction? You surround yourself with conversations, with laughter that barely grazes the surface, with words thrown into the air that evaporate before they leave a mark. You talk, you listen, you smile, you nod, yet something deep in your chest stays untouched, distant, as if watching from afar this theater of appearances where everyone pretends to understand each other. You wonder why, after socializing, you feel that strange exhaustion that has no physical explanation, that kind of emptiness that shows up the moment you say goodbye, when the door closes, and silence greets you like an old friend. There's something uncomfortable in that silence, but something magnetic too. Deep down, you know it. Social noise is a cozy refuge, an escape from the uncomfortable truth. It makes you feel like you belong, even if that belonging has no real face or meaning. And yet Schopenhauer saw it with a clarity most people can't bear to face. Socializing, he said, is one of the most subtle ways to lose yourself. Not because talking to others is wrong, but because in that constant exchange, you often hand over your center, your energy, your authenticity, without even noticing. Look around you. Everything is designed to keep you connected. Notifications, messages, meetings, screens. You think you're surrounded by people, but that connection rests on the weakest foundation there is: approval. You crave to be heard, to be understood, to be accepted. But what happens when that craving becomes the goal itself? You turn into an echo. And every word, every gesture, every laugh you share stops coming from who you are and starts coming from your hunger to be validated. Schopenhauer would have called it spiritual slavery. Living dependent on others' judgment is living as a reflection that's forgotten its source. He wasn't interested in crowds or parties because he understood that most human conversations aren't about truth, they're about distraction. He said that those who truly think, those who observe without the mask of interest, end up alone, inevitably. Not because they despise others, but because the world of appearances becomes unbearable once you've tasted the depth of real thought. You know this too, even if you never say it. Most of the time, people don't talk to share, they talk to fill the void that silence leaves behind. That silence, the one most people can't stand, was Schopenhauer's sanctuary. While others feared being alone, he found in solitude the only form of freedom that mattered. Who does not love solitude does not love freedom, he wrote. And he was right. In solitude, there are no masks to keep, no gestures to fake. There's no need to pretend or compete for attention. There's only you, your thoughts, your contradictions, your fears, and a possibility that social noise always steals from you: the chance to truly know yourself. Of course, that's what scares people. Knowing yourself means facing what you avoid. And society, with its endless chatter, offers the easiest escape. Stay busy, talk, laugh, post, comment. Do anything except face yourself. In that game, socializing turns into anesthesia. The mind scatters, the soul dissolves, and time slips away in hollow conversations. The irony is that you think you're living, when in truth, you're only distracting yourself from the most vital act of all: thinking. Schopenhauer saw in the crowd a silent danger. He said that the more intelligent a person is, the more they suffer among others. Not because others are enemies, but because the sensitive spirit sees through the falseness of daily interactions. The forced jokes, the strategic smiles, the constant need to impress, all of it, to a lucid mind, is just theater. And living in that theater, day after day, eventually empties you. Because while you're pretending, you stop feeling. While you're performing, you stop existing on your own axis. You've been taught that being social is a virtue, that talking a lot means charisma, that having a full calendar is success. But no one warned you about the cost, the loss of depth. You become outgoing but shallow, connected but fragmented, present everywhere, except within yourself. What Schopenhauer offers is not total isolation, but resistance, the ability to not depend on human noise to feel alive. What if solitude wasn't a lack, but a privilege? What if real power wasn't in surrounding yourself with people, but in being alone without feeling empty? That's the core of his philosophy. The wise man doesn't seek approval, he seeks clarity. He doesn't fear distance, because he knows that only from afar can he understand the world's spectacle without being trapped in it. Think about it. How many times have you felt drained after being around people? Not physically, but emotionally emptied, as if your energy had scattered in 1,000 directions. Schopenhauer believed that happens because in every interaction, you give away a part of your attention. And attention, he said, is the most precious thing the spirit owns. When you give it away carelessly, you end up hollow. When you protect it, you grow quietly. Solitude then stops being punishment and becomes refuge. It's the space where the mind learns to listen again, where ideas bloom uninterrupted, where your inner voice, the one society trains you to silence, starts speaking clearly. In that stillness, you discover you don't need as much as you thought. That crowds don't fill you, they only distract you. That the most important conversation doesn't happen with others, but within yourself. Schopenhauer didn't hate humanity, he simply didn't expect too much from it. He knew that humans, driven by ego, tend to turn every relationship into an exchange of interests. Every love is selfish, even the purest one, he said. That's why he advised dealing with others with prudence, but without illusions. Don't hand yourself blindly to society. Observe it like a stream of water, beautiful from a distance, dangerous when you dive too deep. At its core, his message isn't misanthropy, it's lucidity. Socializing, when it becomes excessive, doesn't expand life. It scatters it. It makes you reactive, dependent on external stimuli, incapable of sustaining your own thought without company. And without thought, existence becomes an echo. So the real question isn't whether you should stop talking to others. It's whether you can stand being with yourself without depending on noise. Can you handle the weight of silence? Can you resist the urge to fill every moment with voices and screens? Can you look inward without fearing what you'll find? Because in the end, true freedom isn't conquered in crowds. It's found in the stillness of a mind that no longer needs to impress anyone. Schopenhauer understood it before anyone else. Society promises company, but mostly delivers noise. And noise, while entertaining, slowly devours the substance of the soul. Solitude, on the other hand, when rightly understood, isn't isolation, it's independence. It's not renunciation, it's revelation. It's the space where you stop begging for attention and start cultivating presence. Where you discover that depth doesn't come from speaking more, but from thinking better. And where, finally, you understand what Schopenhauer meant when he wrote that the wise man seeks silence like the pure air his spirit breathes. There's a silent trap hidden in the desire to belong. It starts as something innocent. You just want to feel accepted, heard, loved. You seek company because you think loneliness hurts. But over time, without even noticing, you begin to reshape yourself just to fit in. You soften your ideas, suppress your quirks, hide your wounds. You learn to pretend. And in that act, something inside you starts to die slowly. Schopenhauer saw this with almost cruel clarity. The more you adapt to the noise of the world, the further you drift from your own essence. The modern world perfected that trap. Today, you don't even have to leave your house to lose yourself among others. You do it with a click, a swipe, a post. Every upload, every message, every comment is a small dose of approval that dissolves fast, like sugar in water. And then you come back for more. You become addicted to being seen but invisible to yourself. That's the kind of slavery Schopenhauer would have despised. The slavery of someone who no longer thinks for themselves because their mind has been colonized by the eyes of others. He believed that human beings are ruled by the will, a blind force that drives them to desire endlessly. And society only feeds that will, disguising the craving for recognition as affection, friendship, or love. But what people really want isn't to love, it's to possess, not to understand, but to control. Beneath all the politeness and smiles beats the same primitive urge, to impose one's will over another. That, he said, is the root of all conflict, disappointment, and the invisible wars you fight within your relationships. You've gotten used to that dynamic. You've learned to trade affection, giving a little piece of yourself in exchange for attention. But what you give doesn't always return. Each encounter leaves a mark, a thought that wasn't yours, an emotion you absorbed without realizing, an expectation that now feels like your own. Constant socializing, when done unconsciously, becomes an invisible erosion of the soul. You end up exhausted, and you don't even know why. Schopenhauer preferred the company of books to that of people, not because he despised humanity, but because books don't lie. In reading, he found something that conversation rarely offered: depth. He said the written word allows thought to flow uninterrupted, while conversation often dilutes it. When you speak, you adjust your ideas to be understood. When you read, you dive into pure thought. No filters, no masks. That simple difference revealed what he saw as the greatest danger of socializing: the impoverishment of the mind. External noise doesn't just interrupt thought, it replaces it. Gradually, the voices of the world settle in your head, and you no longer know which ideas are truly yours. You think you're thinking, but you're just repeating what you've heard. You voice opinions, but your voice is already contaminated by the crowd. And the worst part? You feel safe in that confusion, because agreeing with others gives you a comforting illusion of belonging. Schopenhauer would have called that collective self-deception, the comfort of thinking in groups to avoid the burden of thinking alone. But thinking alone, that's what saves you. It's the bravest act you can commit. It takes silence, courage, and distance. Silence to hear yourself. Courage to face what you discover. Distance to avoid getting lost in the noise. When you reach that state, when you can observe the world without being dragged by it, you experience a kind of freedom few ever know. Not outer freedom, but inner freedom. The freedom from needing approval, from needing company to feel whole, from fearing silence. To Schopenhauer, that was the true greatness of man, the independence of spirit. Not the kind you boast about, but the kind you live in secret. The one that allows you to spend an entire day alone and still feel full. The one that doesn't need to convince anyone because it no longer needs to be understood. The one that finds in introspection an endless source of wealth. In a world obsessed with exposure, depth is the rarest form of rebellion. And yet, most people run from it. To flee from silence is to flee from yourself. It's the fear that, once alone, the emptiness you've hidden beneath your words will finally appear. But that emptiness isn't your enemy. It's the space where transformation begins. Schopenhauer knew this. Only when the noise stops does the mind begin to see clearly. That's why he defended solitude as the fertile ground where true thought grows. It's not about isolating yourself out of contempt for the world, but stepping back so you can finally understand it. Social life, with all its rituals and niceties, teaches you to fake courtesy. But courtesy isn't always virtue. Often, it's just a mask for selfishness. You say, "Good to see you," but deep down you compare, judge, analyze. The other person becomes a mirror of your insecurities. And the more you talk, the more you get tangled in the web of appearances. To socialize without awareness is to forget that behind every smile lies a will seeking dominance, and behind every compliment, an expectation that binds you. That's why Schopenhauer advised the prudence of the hermit. Connect, but don't depend. Listen, but don't absorb. Share, but don't give yourself away. Keep an inner distance, like a quiet observer walking among men, never forgetting he belongs to another realm, the realm of thought. It's a difficult art, because the world celebrates the opposite. You're taught that solitude is failure, that silence is emptiness, that withdrawal is weirdness. But those who understand the value of retreat know that within that so-called weirdness lies authenticity. The noise of society has a price. You sacrifice your center just to feel part of something. But what you gain is always less than what you lose. You lose time, energy, clarity. You lose the ability to be with yourself without discomfort. You lose the sensitivity that only blossoms in stillness. Schopenhauer saw this with both pessimism and compassion. Not everyone is ready to bear the weight of thinking alone. Most people need the distraction of the crowd, because facing themselves would hurt too much. And yet, you can choose differently. You can learn to enjoy silence without fear, to disconnect not out of disdain, but out of respect for your own mind. To see solitude not as exile, but as a return. When you do, you discover a pleasure that depends on no one. The pleasure of understanding. Understanding yourself, understanding the world, understanding the impermanence of everything around you. That understanding frees you from the endless hunger for approval, from the need to be remembered, from the anxiety of being accepted. Schopenhauer never asked you to renounce the world, only to stop surrendering your soul to it, to move among people without becoming one of the herd, to guard your inner life as a treasure that's not meant to be displayed, to realize that there's no greater luxury than the peace of a silent mind. Because noise promises happiness, but only silence delivers it. Think about the difference between a calm lake and a raging sea. The social sea is full of motion, voices, gestures. It looks alive, but nothing in it lasts. The lake, on the other hand, reflects the sky only when it's still. That's how the mind of a withdrawn person works. Only in stillness does it reflect the truth. Only in silence does it hear what truly matters. Socializing isn't wrong. Doing it unconsciously is. You don't need to run from the world, only stop running from yourself. And when you learn to be among others without losing your center, you'll finally grasp the secret Schopenhauer tried to reveal. Wisdom isn't measured by how many surround you, but by how little noise you need to feel complete. When the noise fades, something inside you wakes up. You don't notice it at first, because you're used to silence feeling awkward, as if calm means emptiness. But when you stay there, without distractions, without other people's voices filling your head, you realize silence isn't empty at all, it's full of you. Thoughts begin to rise slowly, like they've been waiting years to be heard. Emotions you never had time to feel start to surface. Truths that were hidden reveal themselves once the world finally stops talking to you. That's the revelation Schopenhauer searched for in Solitude, not the absence of company, but the presence of oneself. When the world pushes you to socialize, it sells you the idea that fulfillment is out there, that happiness comes from others, that love or fame will give your life meaning. But the truth is different. Everything external fades, rusts, or disappears. People come and go. They admire you, then forget you. The world applauds one day and ignores you the next. If your worth depends on that noise, you'll live like a castaway, trying to find stability in the waves. That's why Schopenhauer insisted on looking inward. Not because the world doesn't matter, but because he knew no amount of applause can fill the emptiness of someone who doesn't belong to themselves. Society teaches you to search outside for what can only be found within, and it does it so well that you end up believing noise is life. But when it's gone, when everything stops, when you're left alone with yourself, you realize that noise only kept you asleep. Waking up isn't comfortable. It means facing who you are with no filters, no audience. It's like walking into a room you've avoided for years. Inside are your fears, your mistakes, your hidden desires, your contradictions. Most people run from that sight because seeing yourself clearly hurts. But that pain is necessary. It's the fire that purifies, the blow that shatters illusion. Schopenhauer understood this. Suffering isn't punishment, it's the price of clarity. And only those brave enough to face it can free themselves from needing others to feel complete. Socializing can distract you from the weight of existence. It gives you a pause, a relief, a break. But when it all ends, what remains is you, and that's where truth begins. Because life without self-knowledge is just repetition. You repeat the same conversations, gestures, and habits, not realizing that the noise around you only mirrors the noise within. Society doesn't steal your peace, it just amplifies the chaos you already carry. That's why the wise don't run from the world, but they don't get dragged by it either. They walk through crowds without losing their center. They talk but don't scatter. They listen but don't get lost. Their calm doesn't depend on outer silence, but on the inner stillness they've cultivated. That's Schopenhauer's final lesson. Balance isn't about avoiding others, but about not losing yourself in them. And that's where the paradox begins. Because when you stop seeking approval, when you learn to be alone without fear, that's when you finally connect with others from a genuine place. You no longer need to be understood to speak honestly. You don't try to impress, you simply share. You no longer connect from lack, but from the abundance of someone who's whole on their own. At that point, solitude stops being a wall and becomes a